This is fine. I did this to myself. I can blame no one else. All that racism in my throat started to hurt. Hi guys, it's Luna and welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about racism. Yay! I love that topic. That's my favorite topic to talk about.
Okay.
Why are we talking about that? Because I just went through a whole rabbit hole moment where I just go down a rabbit hole after I find out an interesting topic about that topic. And my entire childhood is ruined. Or at least part of it. And I just wanted to ruin your childhood as well, because I'm not going to be alone. So, specifically today, we're talking about nursery rhymes that are racist, and the whole controversy with Dr. Seuss that happened recently enough. I forget exactly when it happened, but it's recent enough. Now let's first talk about Dr. Seuss first, because I don't know, I just feel like talking about him first. If you don't know who this man is, he was a really popular children book writer, like The Cat in the Hat, The Grinch, The Lorax, Horde and Hears a Who, Green Eggs and Ham specifically. Like, there are movies and even TV shows about his characters. You pretty much know him if you ever grew up in America and had to read or have had to go into any library ever. You've always seen his books. We've always had them in our libraries, and it's pretty much a staple. I don't think anybody doesn't know who Dr. Seuss is growing up here. Anyways, I don't know if he's like in other countries and whatnot. I just know in America specifically. Like, I can't be like, hey, do you know who Doctor Who is? I know who Doctor Who is. I can't. Hey, do you know who Dr. Seuss is? And people will be like, no, who's that? What? Who? Who are you talking about? But he recently got into some controversy, and he's dead, by the way. But you get what I'm saying. Like, his whole brand got into controversy because apparently there are very racist depictions in some of his books. Now, from what I understand, the books themselves weren't necessarily racist. They were just depictions of other races that were racist, you know? And actually, before we get into all of that, let me talk about a little bit of context behind this, because I need to understand exactly what time period he's in, because, you know, he's already dead. He's been dead for a while. I think he died in the 90s, like right before the 90s were over. So I want to know how long he lived, when the books were made, and what time they were made in. Now, I found out that Dr. Seuss was born in like the early 90s. When I say early 90s, I mean 1904. Like, this man is very old. So he grew up in a time before World War II, but he was like in it. Like, he was alive when it happened. And if you don't think that, you know, the war brought with it a height of racism, like a heightened level of racism, you're crazy. And I'm sure there was all of that back in the day as well. Hell, we think about the 50s and we think about how women didn't really have rights like that. Bruh, think of everything behind that. That's when this man was growing up in. That's when this man was alive. So with that context, and with the context that a lot of his books were made like from the period of like the 70s, maybe some in the 80s or 90s, to like all the way back into like the 40s, from what I remember. No, I think some of them are even in the 30s. With that context, looking at some of these depictions, I'm not really surprised. Let's talk about it and what exactly he was doing that was so controversial that is now just coming to light. Now, the specific books that were taken off shelves and like they're not going to be reprinting or selling them ever again were, and to think that I saw it on Mulberry Street, It's a Cat's Quizzer, Scrambled Egg Super. It sounds like Dragon Ball Z Super, but okay. Maybe okay, I'll stop. If I Ran the Zoo, my mouth won't let me say it, Elegats, I can't say it. I know that's not how it's said, but I can't say it. That Man's Pool, On Beyond Zebra. Now, well, I'm not going to go into specifics of like every single book and read all of them. I read at least, I believe, 3 of these books, and I'm like, okay, the books themselves really don't have any aggressive undertones or there's no racist undertones. It's mainly just the depictions and what is said about specific characters. And I try to give it like a pass a little bit of like, some of these I can understand like, maybe you're reaching, but also I found that even some of the books that were pulled were changed and altered. Like example, this picture of a depiction of a Chinese man. In the regular book, the person looks fine. There's really no problems with it. But in the original or another depiction, it very much looks racist. The person's yellow, they got a little thing in the back. Like, it's very on the nose. So even though I was like, some of these I think you're overreacting, I then have to take in consideration some of these were obviously altered. And so I'll never know what it actually looked like unless I go really on a deep dive, and I'm not trying to do all that. I've wasted way too much time on this already. But also, taking consideration what is said and why it's in there is also a very big important part of who really was this man and why did he have such a problem with these people. Because if you ever read a Dr. Seuss book, there are wizards and who's and jigabobbles. Like, it's not like they don't usually use people. Like, there's no white people, there's not black people, there's not this race and that race. That's usually not incorporated in his books. He usually uses like random made up races as like a depiction of people. Even you look at most of the covers of his books, even the animals are just mishmashes of different animals or just weird furry creatures. Even the machines, all of it. It's not a specific type of being, but you see these little cut-ins of these racist depictions and it's never that vague. It's always like, oh, here's a Chinese boy, here's a person from this specific place or the specific region of the world, like someone who lives in the Arctic or something like that. And it's weird, these little pop-ins of these real life depictions of people, and you have to question like, why? What is this? Why? What is this? Why are you doing this? Because that was my question of like, with all the who's it's, what's it's, and does it, do's it's, and even the somewhat their depictions of like real animals like bunnies and whatnot. It's just this Chinese boy just stuck in there, and it's like, but why? Well, why are you like? Why does he have to be there? But also, we do have to take consideration with all of that. On top of that, the time he was living in, because a lot of these books were made between, again, the 30s and the 70s. And with that being said, if he was racist, which, okay, look, if he was, with these racist depictions, he kept them going for a very long time. And by the way, they're not just Chinese people, there are black depictions in there, people talking about Eskimo, like it's a whole thing. He's saying things and showing things that could be racist to a lot of people. But also he was living in a time where that's normalized. Again, in the 50s, we were still thinking about how women don't have rights. So when we look back into the 50s, we're thinking about how women didn't have rights. Think of someone living before that, also during that, also past that. Like, they're gonna have racist thoughts, especially because he's white. Like, he's not like a different race to where maybe like, oh, maybe he could grow out of that because he could see the struggle that he's having, and then he's white. Like, it's not gonna help. But also, like, their children's books, you're kind of going out of your way to put them in there. Can you just like not? Even though people are mad at him, I'm honestly way more mad at the company and him because he tried to hide it. It'd be different if these books were just there and someone said, hey, that's a racist depiction of Asian people, and then they took it off the shelves. You literally had to go back and see the version that was changed to be able to recognize that. Because they made an acceptable version when that was just a racist part that didn't need to be in the book. Hell, they could have taken that part out, literally erased the character, and put something else in there that rhymed too. They didn't even do that much, which that would have been bad still, but they didn't even do that much. They just kind of tried to cover it up, which is kind of the part that bothers me the most. Don't cover it up, because even some people are just like, we should honor Dr. Seuss for getting over his racist past. He didn't. He hid it. It's different when you have that and you're out with it and you just take down the books that you're not proud of anymore and you don't condone it. But he had those books. And don't act like he didn't know this happened. He had those books. He hid what he did and then tried to move on for obvious reasons on top of that. Because if you genuinely wanted to show people, hey, we shouldn't be doing this anymore, why are you hiding things that you've done? Not even taking off the book because you might have had some malintent behind it. People believe that like taking out the book entirely is trying to hide the truth. It's not. It was still sold. It was still copied. There's still evidence of it. You're just taking it off shelves so you're not making money off of it. But I respect him a lot less, and that's where the respect is gone for me, that he hid it to continue to make money off of it. And now after death, now everybody's just like, well, yeah, we'll just take those few off now after we made all that money off of them and after we tried to hide the truth and whatnot. And it's like, ugh, can't really respect that. And you can't use the excuse, well, it's from our childhoods in this example. And to think what I saw on Mulberry Street, that whole book is about a child talking about making some shit up, lying to their dad so they can tell him about a over-exaggerated experience. I don't need that for my kid. My kid doesn't need to know how to lie well. Like, there's no real messages in his books like that anyways that aren't literally in every other fucking kid's book. So it's not like these are revolutionary books or anything like that. You could have taken them down and worked to make more positive books, but honestly, hiding it is worse. Hiding it is what people have done for way too long. And so now that it's coming up, yeah, I'm not mad or sad or surprised or even, I don't even really care that you're being canceled. If you're gonna hide something and someone finally brings it back up, it'd be different if you owned what you did and moved on. You sat there and hid it for years and then covered it up, and then now that it's coming up after you're dead, I'm not even mad they're taking shit off shelves. Take it off. We don't need your books in this state. The other books are fine. There's nothing else in the other books that we can see. Those books should have been gone. And so that's kind of the thing that makes me like, it ruined my childhood, because I'm like, if you're gonna do that, then what else were you hiding? And sure enough, this man grew up in 19-nothing because there are a plethora of other examples of a racist past. Just to talk about a few. He used to illustrate back in the day, and boy, we have a bunch of racist depictions of black people. We have racist depictions of Asian people. We just have them all. And again, understanding the time that he was in, it was during World War II, I'm assuming, or before or after, and that time was on the height of racism, specifically towards Asian people, just different people in general, and that's kind of what America is racism country. So, and just looking at some of these, I'm going to show you them now, it's a lot. Like, just reading them, it's so much. And usually I'd read them out, but honestly, reading them makes me uncomfortable. Genuinely, like, it makes me kind of like really uncomfortable, you know? Been a thing for a long time, especially in America, basically profiting off of racism, whether it's towards black people, Asian people, Hispanic people, anyone. Apparently his daughter or somebody close to him came out and was just like, he's not racist, that's not a thing. Gotcha, bitch. But honestly, as you sit under the wealth he has from the things that were racist that he did, I can't really believe you. Just because someone doesn't say the N-word, because you don't hear them dropping those blacks every 5 seconds doesn't really mean anything. Just you've never seen it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And with the proof we see here, it's kind of hard to sway our minds. I haven't seen anything from anyone that has made me think that he may not be that. I'm not even saying that he still is, because it's obvious that he was, but I'm not even saying that he still is. I'm just saying that he's probably not the icon we looked up to when we were younger. He kind of seems like a dirtbag at this point. But then again, we'll never know. The man's dead, so. Granny's little baby loves short things, short things. Granny's little baby loves short things, red. Granny's little baby loves short things, short things. Granny's little baby loves short things, red. Go to the kitchen and pull on the lid. Now that we're done talking about that, because I've talked about that for way too fucking long, let's talk about the other part of my childhood that was ruined. This one's a bit more easy to look up, and people kind of already knew about it. I think it was never broadcast to the general public, which is upsetting for me a little bit. I think most of us at this point, if you're at least my age, like in your 20s, you ended up looking up the origin of like fairy tales and shit. I'm sure there are fairy tales that are just like this, but specifically, I think it was because of something I saw on Twitter. Probably some lady that was on TikTok, I'm pretty sure, but she had talked about one nursery rhyme that was actually racist as hell, and that was just changed. I'm like, okay, and that one was 5 Little Monkeys.
5 little monkeys jumping on the bed. One fell. No. What? What's wrong? You can't. That song is. Sit down. Go on. Okay, but you better not ruin this for me. Frank Green. You heard of him? Like the songwriter from the 1800s, Frank Green? Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Good, okay. And you know about minstrel shows, right? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I definitely know about those. Okay, so he adapted that song, but the word was not monkeys, okay? Well, if the word wasn't monkeys.
And I kind of like, I was like, like, I wasn't surprised. I don't think anybody was surprised that that was very racist. It does change all of the stuff I see about it. Now, even the book that my niece has of like 5 Little Monkeys, can't look at it the same. But I obviously went down a rabbit hole looking at a bunch of other ones, and boy, it's a lot. There's Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo, which apparently that one, a lot of them are about black people. A lot of them. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Catch a Negro by his toe. If he hollers, make him pay $20 every day. There's also another version. I'm like, oh, okay, that's just, alright, cool. I love that for me. There's obvious reasons behind that. I don't need to explain to you why that's a thing. They do talk about how it mainly goes back to obviously slavery and catching slaves. It's a whole thing. But I think you could get that by the general gist of the song. There's Pick a Bell of Cotton, which is another one where it's just like, okay, yeah, I'm duh, Which they did change that, which I did find out. I think it's like Pick a Bell of Cherries or something like that. No, stop trying to erase it. We don't need Pick a Bell of Cotton or Pick a Bell of Cherry. We don't need that. It's not a song we need. It's not a necessary thing of life. Just don't sing the song. You don't need to change it. You don't need to make a better version of it. Just don't sing the song. It's really not hard. There's Jimmy Crack Corn, which, that one I didn't really expect, I just assumed that was like a little dumb diddly about like someone eating corn or something like that. That's what you assume. No, that one's, old master gone, and I'll let him rest. They say all things are for the best, but I'll never forget till the day I die. And then it goes on. You get what I'm trying to say of like, I'm just reading part of it so you understand the context of like, no, yeah, slave boy and their master died, and you get it, like, he doesn't care. It's Oh Susanna, which I didn't really know that song that well, but yeah, I mean, it sounds about right. That'd be racist. That one wasn't really nostalgic. It was just kind of like, oh, I didn't know that one was racist. Camptown Racist, and I'm not gonna lie, that one kind of gave off the vibe, not going to lie, but it just was going down the list of my childhood dying. And the thing that kind of also bothers me about a lot of these were they're also children's songs. It's not like these are songs that were made for adults or like for on TV shows for adults or something like that. These are children's songs. Children mainly sung them, and people sung them to children in schools, activities, camps, all that. Like, it's just But there are also ones like Do Your Ears Hang Low, which, by the way, they said that it's an ice cream song. And I was like, you're right. I always wondered what that song was when I heard like ice cream trucks. When I heard ice cream trucks go by, and I never knew what that song was. I just kind of put it with ice cream songs, but I never realized that that was like Do Your Ears Hang Low. But that's even worse now. Every time I hear ice cream truck, I'm triggered. I'm kidding, but every time I hear an ice cream truck now, I'm gonna remember this, which is great. I love that. And I thought, oh, this is just a song about like a kid with really long ears, probably like a caricature of a child with just really long ears being like, a joke, or it's because of Dumbo or something like that. Like, I thought that's what it was. No, another song that I didn't realize that had a racist undertones as well was shortening bread. I just thought that was this other thing, Mama's little baby loves shortening, shortening. Mama's little baby loves shortening bread. Like, it's just a cute little song. Why? Why? You didn't need to put the racism in there. That would have been a fire song otherwise. Whatever. Oh, this doesn't even talk about just songs. Apparently, there was a game that was made by the people that also made Monopoly called 10 Little N-Words. Okay, thank you. This worse. I didn't read this one all the way through. I was reading other articles. Oh, this little PowerPoint presentation gives me more. Okay, that's fine. Oh, and there's a song with it. Oh, 1 little, 2 little, 3 little Indians. 4 little... Oh, so it was first for Indians, and then people changed it for the N-word. Usually, I think we exchange it for like snowflakes and things like that. Didn't even know that Indians was a part of that. Okay, cool. That's great. It all is depressing, but also it's really interesting. I'm kind of going in and looking up more things about it, and it's just getting worse. Getting off the topics of songs, there are also a lot of other figures and whatnot that are races that we don't really think about. Well, I mean, we think about, but it's more of like, it was out there, so we kind of just joke about it, but also, like, they existed. Like, I know they talk about people like Walt Disney and in cartoons back in the day, there used to be hella racism. Even Tom and Jerry, there was little hints of it, and actually, no, there wasn't hints of it. I've straight up seen some racist depictions in Tom and Jerry, especially on Twitter. Yeah, I kind of forget that, like, first of all, those shows were made way back in the day, but also that those things existed and were there. You kind of just forget because no one really talks about it anymore because they kind of just moved on. They just kind of took the content down or moved on, or it just isn't obviously there anymore for obvious reasons, especially with Disney. They're not going to have anything that doesn't represent their brand now. Yeah, but they just go into other examples like Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben. It goes into other figures and songs and things like that, and TV shows that had blackface and shit. And it's like, yeah. So looking at all of these, and I went and researched more because obviously I was curious, but I'm not going to put it into this entire video because that's going to be a little bit boring, honestly. It's a kind of a history, and honestly, if you've been awake this entire year and last year, you kind of know that this is all kind of just our MO here. So it's not really surprising. My only problem even with this is that these were covered up. Like, the words were changed. The names were changed instead of just getting rid of them altogether. I don't need to have the song 5 Little Monkeys exist. If it was gonna be like that, I don't need to have it exist. You don't need to change it. You don't need to warp it so you can still make money off of it, because that's the only reason these things still exist. Just get rid of it. If it has such a racist undertone to it, just get rid of it. If there was hate behind the making of that song, you don't need it. I'm not saying delete the entire history of them. Make it known that they were racist, and then just don't say it. That's all I'm trying to say. Do you get what I'm saying? But when you hide it, when you only care when it starts hurting your pockets, which really just means that you're not profiting from it anymore, that's when it's like, okay, that is disingenuous. I don't care about what you feel. I don't care if people are canceling you. I don't care. I could care less. And that's just kind of how I feel about all of it. If you're that pressed about your money, then when your money starts getting thinner, I start caring even less than I did, which I cared not at all.
Just remember this. We could have been stardust, same world.